Hello, Eternum, and welcome to KOTT News, Eternum's #1 source for news. And this is the War Report. Dynamic change in the history of Eternum last night as the challengers of Strawberry become heavyweight champions of the island by way of second-round knockout. KOTT News crews were on the scene and spoke with company leadership about the fight.
All you have to do is listen to Akina and stand on point. It's just that easy.
Yeah, Akina was calling it pretty hard tonight. Is anybody else out there whose effort you might want to highlight?
Got an MVP, my boy Voltaire.
How's it feel? Now day 1 here, 13 away from Never Fall. Are you going to stick around the whole time this time?
That's a good one. Hey, you know, now that we got 2 territories with the whole merc change and whatnot, the company's growing, the community's growing. I feel like we're going to be able to hold both and give the server some good content. Definitely excited for the weeks to come.
Was there anything going on here in the hamlet that you might want to tell people about?
We've got to figure out like territory buffs, like which one's going to have. Ideally, the server organizes, you know, so we got a little bit of everything up at once, you know, a little bit of engineer's patience here, a little armor's inspiration over there, you know, maybe a little arcanist wisdom over there.
Quickly to the weather today as the sun continues its voyage around the planet yet again. Be on the lookout for corruption invasion forces after sundown, rising up across 20% of the island. 3 lineup submissions for simulated fantasy combat resolution tonight, brought to you by LARPco. Remember, if it isn't LARPco, it is cardboard. First up, the Covenant forces of Sugar and Spice assail the Syndicate forces of Soju Gang for control of First Light and the flow of the spice. It was only a matter of time before the forces of Sugar and Spice made their move for the hyssop production and spice refining facilities of First Light. But the current reigning Spice Lords of the island have been preparing for this from the moment they spotted their enemies' arrival on the island, scouting them completely during their previous fights. Meanwhile, the Covenant forces of Washed Degenerates attack the Syndicate forces of Qui is 5'2" for control of the primary oil reserves of Weaver's Fen. The newcomers of Washed Degenerates head into the peat moss bog of the Fen with hope and a bar of soap to bring the teachings of the spark and cleanliness. The forces of Qui have been working out in the Fen for a while now and seem to have their bog legs under them. They've held one so far, but will they stand against this unknown aggressor? Later, the Syndicate forces of E-Boy Beach assault the vault of Norivana Marauders for control of the financial capital of Windsward. E-Boy Beach sneaking in late at night in their attempt to secure the central Bacon region of the island. But will they get past the new bank security? The bank security forces of Norivana have been patrolling the perimeter looking for anyone foolish enough to try and sneak in. But something tells me there won't be anything sneaky about the offense tonight. We'll have any late-breaking outcomes and reactions from the citizens tonight at 11. Until then, this has been War Correspondent JChalant, KOTT News. Hello, Eternum, and welcome to KOTT News, Eternum's #1 source for news. And this is the War Report. Dynamic change in the history of Eternum last night as the forces of Washed Degenerates streak through the attack and claim the primary oil reserves of Weaver's Fen. KOTT News were on the scene when it all went down and got a word with one of the participants. Thank you very much for stopping to talk to me for just a minute. Were you in that fight tonight?
It really wasn't a fight, but yes.
Yeah, I know. Would you care to take us through what happened out there? It doesn't. Usually when it's over that quickly, it's been a resolved issue beforehand or a peaceful negotiation has happened, but you seem to be in the dark about it?
As far as I know, it was just another throw war. The other company that held this place before had only 5 people.
I see.
So it was just filled up with about 25 in total, and so it was a pretty clear victory.
We also requested an interview with Degenerate leadership and were appointed a representative to discuss the future of the Fen.
Hey, this is Raku. Raku's representative, I should say. It was a really hard-fought war. We held W really, really hard, and they just held S, just better than us.
It's over pretty quickly. What are your intentions now that you've been given the hamlet?
Oh, man, they call this the swamp, but, you know, it's got beauty in it. You know, if you look around, you know, get some glowing shrooms, get some diseases here and there, but it's a great swamp. We're gonna do tier 5 all because tier 5 all is great for everyone in the economy these days.
Later in First Light, we caught up with the Spice Lords to discuss their efforts in their victory. Congratulations on your victory here tonight, holding it for the entire duration. How do you feel it went out there tonight?
It went well. A lot of our folks showed up, and we tried to slot as many of our guys as possible. We're just getting ready for the new update, and it's nice to see a lot of our members coming out. So thanks for everyone.
Excellent. Was there anybody out there whose efforts you might want to highlight?
For sure. I would like to highlight our Dex gang for showing up every time. They really pulled it down from inside the fort. I also like to highlight our boy Ace and Sushi for his fire staff highlight. He was on VG today, but we'll make sure he pulls out the fire staff next war.
Do you have anything coming up here in the hamlet that the people, the citizens of the island might want to swing through here and celebrate with you?
Yeah, we're working hard on getting our town upgraded. I think right now we're in a good shape, so if anyone likes to pay us a visit, I'll be greatly appreciated. We're all ways around here.
Very well, my friend. Thank you very much. That's quite enough for me, unless there's something that you might like to add.
No, we are all good to go. I just want to give a last shout out to our boy Taos for showing up with a great sport and going 0-40 every war. Call him the Mr. 40 Bomb.
It was a nail-biter in the nightcap, but Norivana forces were able to keep the fort flag from touching the ground in the final moments in Windsward. Brava and Alpha down in the first 2 minutes of the fight, but a 28-minute fight on the outer objective, and then maybe an extra 6 minutes inside the fort. How do you feel it went out there tonight?
It was a good fight, John. Definitely a lot of adrenaline coming from both sides. Overall, I think it was a really, really fair and close fight. Honestly, one of the more serious wars we've had on El Dorado in a long time.
Yes, it was enjoyable to watch. How do you feel the recent lineup restrictions that were imposed by AGS might have impacted the performance of anyone tonight?
Yeah. The bug with people doing a war today and then not being able to get on a roster at all screwed over people on both sides. So that's kind of annoying. A small indie development company, by the way.
Quickly to the weather, and it's going to be a wonderful afternoon all day long as the sun crosses the Eternum sky once more. Then, as you might expect, the island's organized corrupted forces will rise up and invade 30% of the island's regions. No submissions for Simulated Fantasy Combat Resolution tonight, but we'll have any late-breaking outcomes and reactions from the citizens tonight at 11. Until then, this has been War Correspondent JChalant, KOTT News. Hello, Eternum, and welcome to KOTT News, Eternum's #1 source for news. And this is the War Report. No change in the dynamic of Eternum last night, as the great houses of the island take a step back to become more familiar with new lineup restrictions. KOTT News crews took the opportunity to gather ingredients to remedy the Great Pharaoh Imhotep. Using stealth techniques honed to perfection on the battlefield ramparts, I was able to sneak past several patrols and secure the resources to save the Pharaoh. More on this story as it develops. Looking at the one-day Doppler radar weather forecast, and as you can see, the sun will once again cross the sky. Just as, yet again after sunset, emboldened corruption forces will rise up and spread havoc across 30% of the island. 2 fresh submissions for Simulated Fantasy Combat Resolution tonight, brought to you by LARPco. Remember, if it isn't LARPco, it's cardboard. Up first, the Covenant forces of Most Wanted assail the Marauders of Nirvana Bruisers Union for control of the master fishing port town of Reekwater. The forces of Most Wanted, feeling confident in their understanding of the new rules of Simulated Fantasy Combat Resolution, but are they sabotaging their later defense? Nirvana Bruisers Union seem perfectly comfortable with the new rules of engagement, but then again, they only have the one fight to prepare for tonight. Later, the Marauders of Here Be Dodgers attack the Covenant forces of Most Wanted for control of the bear-infested deep forests of Brightwood. Here Be Dodgers turning their attention to the forests of Brightwood, perhaps seeking an abundance of firewood to get them through the second harshest winter in Eternum's history. Most wanted forces treading a delicate balance will have to contend with potential conflicts that may be imposed from the earlier fight. So all acolytes of the Spark should prepare for an opportunity. We'll have the outcomes and reactions from the citizens tonight at 11. Until then, this has been War Correspondent JChalant, KOTT News. Hello, Eternum, and welcome to KOTT News, Eternum's #1 source for news. And this is the War Report. Dynamic change in the history of Eternum last night as the forces of Here Be Dodgers claimed the bear-infested deep forests of Brightwood. KOTT News crews were experiencing technical difficulties last night, but have submitted a request for statement through Discord channels. Quickly to the weather, and once again the sun will cruise across the Eternum sky, keeping corruption back. But after sundown, the corruption forces of the island will rise up and invade 20% of the coastal regions. 2 submissions for simulated fantasy combat resolution tonight, brought to you by LARPco. Remember, if it isn't LARPco, it's cardboard. Up first, the Covenant forces of Tropical House challenge the Syndicate forces of Strawberry for their championship title and the right to rule over Everfall. In the yellow corner, hailing from the rain-drenched region of Morningdale, the crew that wants to put the spark back in your heart, Tropical House. In the purple corner, defending their recently acquired championship belt for the first time this run, your current, reigning heavyweight champions of Eternum, Strawberry. Later, the Covenant forces of Sugar and Spice assault the Syndicate forces of E-Boy Beach for control of the arid desert region of Brimstone Sands. Sugar and Spice forces once again pushing a region into conflict after spreading their devout messaging. But will the spark empower them to victory tonight? E-Boy Beach continue to utilize the vast desert region to enjoy their various sand-related recreational activities, always ready to defend their title of Kings and Queens of the Beach. Be sure to tune in for complete coverage and reactions from the citizens tonight at 11. Until then, this has been War Correspondent JChalant, KOTT News. Hello, Eternum, and welcome to KOTT News, Eternum's #1 source for news. And this is the War Report. No change in the dynamic of Eternum last night as the champs hold on to their title belt in Everfall, and the desert nomads of E-Boy Beach hold off the unlicensed merchants of Sugar and Spice. KOTT News were on the scene in Brimstone Sands, where the payout line was quite long. Afterwards, we caught up with one of the defenders to get their reactions. Congratulations on your victory here in Brimstone Sands, losing the first 2 points early, but a 50-50 throughout that looked like a farm war to me. How did you see it going down out there?
I was nervous going in. I mean, I had a great group, joined TeamSpeak, a lot of great players in my group. Kind of nervous, but we pulled it off through a farm war. Even though it was probably a farm war, we tried our best.
Was there anybody out there who tried a little bit harder than anybody else?
Honestly, I got some great heals. I'm unfamiliar with the name, but I got some huge heals. Huge heals.
Very well. We'll give a general shout out to the healing squad tonight. Great work out there. Well, is there anything else you might like to add while you have this opportunity here?
I stream New World content. My name is Jules NW. You can follow my Twitch, sub to my YouTube. Big shout out to JChalant. I'm a big fan. He puts out banger content every night. Give him a follow as well.
Turning to the weather, and if you can believe it, the sun will continue its consecutive days appearing streak by 1 yet again. Then, be on the lookout for the solar-phobic forces of the corrupted as they finally get out of bed and march to the food reserves across 20% of the island. 2 more submissions for simulated fantasy combat resolution tonight, brought to you by LARPco. Remember, if it isn't LARPco, it's cardboard. First up, the Marauders of High Wind Dragoons assail the Syndicate forces of Soju Gang for control of First Light and the flow of the spice. High Wind Dragoons return to the fighting by setting their sights on the southern peninsula of First Light, but will their latest effort succeed? Not if the reigning spice lords of the island have anything to say about it. The year-round spice production is critical to their future financial success. Later, the Marauders of Thrust Damage assault the Covenant forces of Washed Degenerates for control of the primary oil reserves of Weaver's Fin. Returning for their second effort to secure land on the island come the Marauders of Thrust Damage. But will they dislodge the regional zealots from their position of authority? The Washed Degenerates brought cleanliness to the swamp last week and made it clear that they see beauty in the bog, so they'll soap the tongue of anyone who besmirches its appearance. We'll have the outcomes and reactions from the citizens tonight at 11. Until then, this has been War Correspondent JChalant, KOTT News. Hello, Eternum, and welcome to KOTT News, Eternum's #1 source for news. And this is the War Report. Dynamic change in the history of Eternum last night as the Marauders of Thrust Damage slog into the peat moss bog of the Fin and capture the fort in rapid fashion. KOTT was on the scene in time to witness the celebratory team photo on the steps of City Hall. Afterwards, we were able to get a few words from this loosely organized group of marauders.
Pretty hot, you know, we hardly started out, it was pretty hot. We were struggling out there. I took a hit. But you know, AC Slater, he came through, he was swinging that sword around. He came with the gold. He was able to pick it up and carry the team. His back's hurting right now, but pretty good stuff.
I couldn't help but notice that immediately upon taking control of the Fin that you began upgrades on the Tier 4 Forge.
Yeah, we're a company of the people, you know. We want to make sure that that everyone that comes to this community is well spoken for, well taken care of. So please come by and use our forge. We'll have it at Tier 5 by tomorrow morning.
Earlier in First Light, the reigning Spice Lords of Soju Gang maintained their hold on the Hyssop and Spice production facilities for yet another day.
Congratulations on your victory out there tonight. It looks like they slowly but surely managed to take 1, then 2 points away, but the final 50-50 on the outer objective was yours to win the day. How do you feel it went out there?
Yeah, I think it went really good. This was the first war officially where we had to deal with the merc changes and still 40 of our own people. We were actually just ended up working out that we were missing a couple slots, so we didn't actually have a full 50.
Oh, I was this close to putting in for a press pass. I probably should have.
But no, it went really well. I do have to say the attacking company, they did have some really good pushes. Like even like towards the end, they were doing a really good job of regrouping their whole army, and that's definitely that was good to see. Like they can keep grinding and they'll do better.
No, I agree. If they had the mental fortitude to regroup late in the game, then that's somebody who doesn't. The lack of mental fatigue means they're going to keep coming back. That's what I like to see.
100%. Have to acknowledge that for sure.
No, cheers. Well, was there anybody out there whose efforts you might want to highlight tonight?
Oh, definitely all the mercs that we had come out. We always appreciate them. They always do great jobs for us. And Asian Sushi finally got to bust out the fire staff today, I think. So that was great. We've been missing that action. And yeah, just shout out to all the Soju Gang company members that aren't really that used to warring, but that were down to kind of do what we needed them to do. And yeah, we appreciate everybody.
Turning to the weather, and after the sun spends the day meandering through the sky, northern cold fronts will descend from the mountains, giving rise to a 30% chance of invasion. 2 more submissions for Simulated Fantasy Combat Resolution tonight, brought to you by LARPCO. Remember, if it isn't LARPCO, it's cardboard. First up, the Covenant forces of Most Wanted assail the Marauders of They Want My Swamp for control of the master fishing port town of Reekwater. Most Wanted forces returning to the action after a rough night 2 nights ago, but this time they only have 1 roster to worry about as they wade into Reekwater. The occupying marauders of the region have to deal with this every time they rebuild the highway overpass bridge. It's only after the infrastructure is done that they want my swamp. Meanwhile, the Syndicate forces of Soju Gang assault the Covenant forces of Tropical House for control of the rain-drenched mountain region of Morningdale. Soju Gang coming off a successful hold of the beachfront hamlet of First Light last night, taking their roster to the overcast region of Morningdale. But will they find success in such an unfamiliar environment? Tropical House are well aware of the irony of their position as rulers of Morningdale, but they derive inner sunshine from the spark as they fight to maintain control of their holy land abutting the northeastern death wall. We'll have any late-breaking outcomes and reactions from the citizens tonight at 11. Until then, this has been War Correspondent JChalant, KOTT News. Hello, Eternum, and welcome to KOTT News, Eternum's #1 source for news. And this is the War Report. Dynamic change in the history of Eternum last night as the Syndicate forces of Soju Gang resecure the forward observation post of Morningdale. And the forces of Most Wanted, empowered by their faith in the spark, rapidly capture the master fishing port town of Reekwater. We caught up with Most Wanted leadership to discuss the fight and their intentions for the hamlet.
It was a bit of a throw ward, but you know what? We still celebrated like it was a hard win.
Indeed. Did they all 50 show up, or was it not filled entirely?
I wouldn't say quite 50, but
What about you two? Will you be taking care of the infrastructure of this hamlet and possibly the bridge behind me? I've been hearing complaints about its workmanship not being up to par, and that's why it's collapsed twice in the last year.
I think the bridge might have to wait, John. First thing, these boys, they like to party, so right away, there's going to be parties happening left and right. We chicks everywhere. Drinks on the house. Man, Boba. He's going to take care of everyone. And then after all that, I don't know, we'll fix the bridge. It turns out they drink just as much as we do. Just like good old times, eh, John?
Moments later, Morningdale was secured by the forces of Soju Gang. KOTT spoke with a company representative about the fight.
Congratulations on your victory here in Morningdale, successfully overcoming the forces of Tropical House. Would you care to take us through it?
Yeah, so this was a war that we were really anticipating. We've got some new recruits in there. We're trying to stack up our army, prepare for the merc changes, and all respect to TropX. We love those guys. It was a fun war, and our guys showed up.
Indeed. Anybody on your team whose efforts you might want to highlight today?
Yeah, King Rav. He wasn't there on the battlefield, but he was there in spirit. We love and miss him.
Well, are you at liberty to tell us what your plans are for the hamlet now that you're in charge here?
We're actually going to erect a statue of King Rav in the middle of Morningdale, so his loyal servants can him every morning.
Turning again to the weather, and once more the sun cruises across the Eternum sky, keeping corruption at bay. But once more, multiple corruption invasion forces will come out after dark to invade up to 30% of the island. Yet another submission for Simulated Fantasy Combat Resolution tonight, brought to you by LARPco. Remember, if it isn't LARPco, it is cardboard. Tonight, the Covenant forces of Sugar and Spice assault the Marauders of Berry Dodgers for Crown and Kingdom of the Western Monarch's Bluff. Sugar and Spice continue to mix it up, testing the mettle of each great house individually in turn. But will tonight be the night that they finally break through? After last night's outcomes, Berry Dodgers become the second longest tenured great house currently holding a region. Will they continue fighting to continue pressing on? Be sure to tune in for complete coverage and reactions from the citizens tonight at 11. Until then, this has been War Correspondent JChalant, KOTT News.